In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. Whatever the virtues in the many fields of knowledge, all are steps on the path of omniscience. May these arise in the clear mirror of intellect. O Manjushri, please accomplish this. Good evening and welcome to our last class exploring this classical text by Maitreya, distinguishing Dharma and the essence of Dharma. Focusing these last three classes on a commentary by the third karma, or Rangjung Dorje. And my note from last time says that we stopped on the top of page 279. Anybody need the text? Everybody have the text? So, we should probably back up actually to 278. There's a section header there. So we are in the 7th of 10 points on the fundamental transformation, which is the term used to describe enlightenment. And there's many subsections to the 7th part, the 7th of those 10 topics. And we appear to be in the 7th of those somewhere. 737-235. If that means anything to you. The non-observation of these two in this way is non-conceptual wisdom. What are the two?
Apprehended and apprehender?
It does appear to be that. Not observing any reference, they engaged in not observing mere cognizance either, backing up to the bottom of page 277. In the middle there. By virtue of observing everything as mere cognizance, they engage in not observing any reference. So cognizer and reference are apprehended and apprehender, which is in the commentary. The non-observation of these two in this way is non-conceptual wisdom. It lacks an object and lacks observation because it is characterized by not observing any characteristics. It's an odd way to be characterized, but okay. The lack of appearance of these two, apprehender and apprehended, all phenomena appearing like the center of space. We talked about that and how that was probably located just above Syracuse. And all noble objects appearing like illusions and so on constitute the path of seeing. Through cultivating it, all stains are eliminated, and this is perfected through lacking any observation of the six objects on the inside or outside, presumably the sixth sense, objects of the sixth sense consciousnesses, and not observing any characteristics of factors to be relinquished and remedies, as well as the characteristics of suchness and the fruition, as taught above. Such characteristics are clearly discussed in detail in the Prajnaparamita texts. non-entities, entities, superimposition, denial, oneness, difference, nature, distinctive features, and names and reference exactly as they are. Which is sort of an odd quote. And this is 736. Huge, long notes by Carl. The content of this verse corresponds to verse 21 in section 2 of Mahayana Samgraha and also resembles Mahayana Suchalamkara 1177, but I could not identify it as it stands. Dignaga explains these 10 characteristics or conceptual distractions in more detail and links them to passages in the Prajnaparamita in 8,000 lines. However, these 10 are not mentioned by name in any Prajnaparamita sutra. Okay, poetic license. As for these 10, the Mahayana Samgraha, text by Sangha, says the Buddha stated the following as the meaning of the remedy for the conception of non-entities while existing as bodhisattvas. So this seems to be this odd little way of collecting statements of the Buddha, showing that he stated all sorts of different ways of looking at things that eliminate, according to this compilation, eliminate the two extremes, basically. So at times he talked about bodhisattvas existing. He stated, so that was for non-entities. And then for entities, he stated the following as the meaning of the remedy for the conception of entities. They do not really see bodhisattvas. He stated the following as the meaning of the remedy for the conception of superimposition. They do not really see the name bodhisattva. They do not really see prajnaparamita. They do not really see engagement in it. They do not really see forms, nor do they see feelings, discriminations, formations, and consciousness. Why is that? Because names are empty of any nature of their own. The word see is probably used in a general sense as opposed to the object of visual consciousness. He stated the following as the meaning of the remedy for the conception of denial. It is not by virtue of emptiness that form is emptiness. What is it by virtue of that form is empty if it's not by virtue of emptiness?
Virtue is a label.
Just by the nature of reality?
Yeah, probably more like because of their nature of being impermanent and compounded and so forth. He stated the following as the meaning of the remedy for the conception of oneness. What is the emptiness of form is not form.
Are we playing Jeopardy?
Yes. What is the nature of, it's a very odd quote. He stated the following as the meaning of the remedy for the conception of difference, nor is it anything other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. We all know that phrase. He started the following as the meaning of the remedy for the conception of a nature. Subhuti, it is as follows. Form is just a name. He stated the following as the meaning of the remedy for the conception of distinctive features. And nature does not arise, does not cease, is not afflicted, and is not purified. He stated the following as the meaning of the remedy for the conception of reference, being exactly as their names. Based on fabricated names, phenomena are discriminated, and conventional expressions are asserted in accordance with random names, and people cling to reference in exactly the same way in which they label them with such conventional expressions. We all know that. Habit, common habit. He stated the following is the meaning and the remedy for the conception of names being exactly as their reference. Bodhisattvas do not really see all these names. Since they do not really see them, they have no clinging. What the Buddha had in mind here is that bodhisattvas do not see names exactly as their reference are. Just as with form, the same is to be applied to all skandhas up through consciousness as the remedy for these 10 distractions. Non-conceptual wisdom is taught in all Prajnaparamita texts. Thus, the entire meaning of the Prajnaparamita text should be understood as being contained in antagonistic factors and remedies. That's sort of very conflicting, violent language, antagonistic. Furthermore, if one summarizes all purified phenomena, there are 4 kinds. Natural purity is suchness, emptiness, the true limit, signlessness, the ultimate, and also the Dharma Dhatu is one kind, natural purity. Stainless purity refers to this very natural purity, not having any obscurations. The complete 3, the complete purity, the path to attain this unstained purity consists of all the dharmas concordant with enlightenment, the paramitas, and so on. The pure focal object in order to generate this path is the teaching of the genuine dharma of the Mahayana. In this way, since this dharma is the cause for purity, it is not the imaginary nature. Since it is the natural outflow of the pure Dharma Dhatu, it is not the dependent nature either. All purified phenomena are included in these 4 kinds of purity. All purified phenomena, which apparently are not either the imaginary or the dependent, that leaves only the completely perfected nature. They're following 2 summarizing verses. The teachings about illusions and so on refer to what is present. The teachings about non-existence refer to the imaginary, while the teachings about the perfect refer to the 4-fold purity. So the first one about illusions and so on refer to what is present, must be the dependent nature. This purity consists of being natural, stainless, the path, and the focal object. All pure phenomena are included in these 4 kinds of purified phenomena. So the completely perfected nature. All focal objects of mental engagement are taught through being included in this. This concludes the explanation of comprehending the defining characteristics of wisdom. Next is comprehending the training, which is the 8th part of the 3rd part of the 7th of the 10 topics. This is 2 parts, brief and detailed. And jumping into the brief, we have this comprehension of the training is also 4-fold, of course. This teaches that bodhisattvas attain this wisdom if they train in 4-fold ways, or certain ways. Okay. Detailed 4 parts. The paths of accumulation and preparation together, seeing, familiarization, and completion. The first 2 together. By virtue of the training through aspiration on the level of engagement through aspiration, this is the phase of discernment. Training through aspiration on the level of engagement through aspiration. That's an odd statement. The paths of accumulation preparation were already taught in the explanation of the first 6 points of comprehending the nature of phenomena. So if you remember, the text was divided basically into 4 sections. First was the summary. Second was an examination of the nature of dharmas, or phenomena. And then third was the examination of the intrinsic essence or intrinsic nature of dharma or dharmata. And the 4th is the fundamental transformation. So paths of accumulation and preparation were taught in the context of explaining the nature of dharmas, since they are mundane. Accordingly, bodhisattvas who are endowed with the Mahayana disposition by virtue of the foundation of noble objects, the noble objects, i.e. the three natures. What's the difference between by virtue of the foundation of noble objects, the three natures? Anyway, the engagement in these characteristics, the manner to which engage in them, and the progression of the three trainings. Study the principles of what is relinquished and what is attained. The Mahayana Pitaka, that is the natural outflow of the Dharmadhatu. By virtue of that, they give rise to the factors conducive to liberation through the five dharmas, such as confidence. Generate the earth-like bodhicitta, attain the gold-like one of unchanging superior intention, and the one that is like the waxing moon in which the qualities become special. This bodhicitta's further and further increase. That's a little odd. And attain the fire-like one that consumes apprehended and arises from meditation. So these are 5 different ways of bodhicitta. 1 is confidence, 2 is earth-like bodhicitta, gold-like is 3, waxing moon is 4, and fire-like one is 5. This is the training through aspiration. Through the armor-like practice of the 6 paramitas and the practice of engagement, right? So we have relative bodhicitta of aspiring and engaging. 2 different types of relative bodhicitta. Bodhisattvas take the aspiration for the foundation, that is the Dharmakaya, the basic element of non-conceptual wisdom, as their object. It is through the cognitions that focus on that they, based on the accumulation of causes of calm abiding spirit insight, engage in these focal objects. Shamatha Vipassana, interestingly, are central. Through having engaged in them, they train in the path of the factors conducive to penetration with its 4 levels of heat, peak, poised readiness, and the supreme dharma, which are the 4 stages or levels of the path of preparation. Therefore, the paths of accumulation and preparation are called the training through aspiration. I don't know if you remember this, but the Padmakara team translated the first path as preparation. And Carl is translating, as most translators do, the second path as preparation. When bodhisattvas train in this manner, 282 page, they need to relinquish the 5 flaws and rely on the 8 remedial applications, talking about the obstacles and antidotes to good old shamatha, laziness, forgetting what? Oh, the instructions. Dullness, agitation, non-application, application. These are sort of the 5 flaws. As the remedies for laziness, they should make efforts in dispelling it through striving, effort, confidence, and suppleness. Suppleness sounds so weird as a translation for what it's talking about. As the remedy for forgetting the instructions, they should give rise to mindfulness and not forget them. When dullness and agitation arise, they should dispel them through being embraced by alertness. So just a nice little review of our obstacles and antidotes, where the forgetting the instructions is the obstacle to mindfulness, and the antidote is to apply mindfulness, to not forget. And the antidote to the 2 main flaws in meditation, dullness and agitation, which occur when meditation actually finally comes about in a genuine way, or mindfulness starts to happen in a genuine way, is the antidote of alertness or awareness or samprajanya. If they, after thoughts have subsided, they being dullness and agitation, do not apply the appropriate remedies to the arising of dullness and agitation. Sorry, the they must be like some people, the bodhisattvas, yeah. If those bodhisattvas, after thoughts have subsided, do not apply the appropriate remedies to the arising of dullness and agitation, they should unfold the appropriate remedial thoughts through the intention to apply those remedies, which is a long way of saying they should apply the remedy. When they are distracted by remedial thoughts and apply these remedies too forcefully, they should rest evenly through equanimity. That's so odd when they're distracted by remedial thoughts. So when they're distracted by thinking about the remedies, by applying the remedies over and over again, they should rest evenly. Through training in this manner, all 5 faculties of mastery arise, and through not being suppressed by Maras and the Hinayana, these turn into the 5 powers. So the 5 strengths are faculties of mastery, and the 5 powers of the path of preparation. The Mahayana Sutra Alamkara by Maitreya says the path of calm abiding should be known as the synopsis of the names of the Dharma, which is probably not what we would have called shamatha. Isn't that a cool definition? Calm abiding, the path of shamatha, should be known as the synopsis of the names of the Dharma. What are the names of the Dharma? What an obscure statement, isn't it? We should find that verse and like the commentary on it. It's like knowing all the different aspects of the Dharma is the path of shamatha, of like knowing the 3 skills, the aggregates, the ayatanas, and the dhatus, knowing the 12 nidanas, and so on and so forth. All of that is shamatha, presumably by experiencing them in a semi-conceptual, semi-non-conceptual, and undistracted manner, identifying them through shamatha practice. The path of vipassana should be known as the analysis of their meanings, the meanings of the names. Very odd. The path of unity, presumably the unity of shamatha vipassana, should be known to be their combination, which is what happens on the path of preparation. The second path, the faint-hearted mind should be made firm, and agitation should be pacified. Then, once evenness with regard to the focal object is attained, they should rest in equanimity. Interesting. I have to track that one down.
That one says nothing. The note. It's like a.
Oh, does it give the place?
It's just XIV.
Chapter.
Yeah.
In the Sunbeam emotion. Okay. Well, there's 2 commentaries on it, so we can see if the commentary adds anything. So Mahayana Sutra Alamkara 14, verse 8 to 10. A, B are the first 2 lines of the verse. That's what that little code language means, in case you're interested. Anybody? Through relying on this, the illuminations taught above arise, which represent the training and discernment. Thus, the focal objects, the aspects, and the training are taught in general here. And we just went through like the 4 focal objects, probably a bunch of aspects and so forth. The signs of this training, the differences between this training and the Hinayana and Mahayana, its qualities and so on, are as discussed in detail in the text on Prajnaparamita. and the Bodhisattva Bhumi. The Bodhisattva Bhumi being part of the Yogacara Bhumi by Asanga, huge compilation. And there is a translation of the Bodhisattva Bhumi. By virtue, explanation of the path of seeing. By virtue of the training and direct realization on the first bhumi, this is the phase of contact. So the term in the text, the Dharmadharmatava Bhanga, that the Maitreya uses to refer to the path of seeing is contact. Once the characteristics of cognizance are eliminated through focusing on the dhatu, of non-conceptuality, focusing on the realm of non-conceptuality. It's an interesting way of putting it. We wouldn't quite say focusing on non-conceptuality, but he did. As the cognitive aspect of meditative equipoise, all phenomena appear like the center of space, but bodhisattvas engage in the power of phenomena during subsequent attainment and do so in an illusion-like manner. The power of phenomena. This is the path of seeing in the first bhumi, the distinctions, the focal objects, and the aspects of its 16 moments in terms of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas versus bodhisattvas are discussed in the Abhisamaya Alamkara, which is a text by Maitreya, one of the 5 Maitreya texts, translated into English usually as Ornament of Higher Realization. And the 16 moments are the 4 aspects of each of the 4 Noble Truths that comprise the path of seeing, which is the seeing through of those 16 aspects that consists in 8 knowledges and 8 subsequent attainments or subsequent endurances, they're called. I don't write them down here out of fear of being too wordy. That Tashi Namgyal, right, in the Moonbeams, he's the same phrase, right? Out of fear. I thought these guys were like beyond hope and fear, right? Why are they so fearful of being wordy? That's like, must keep them up at night. Oh my God, I hope I'm not too wordy. This first bhumi is called the contact with the samadhi of the light of conceptual wisdom. That's neat. Here, through their pure superior intention, bodhisattvas generate the bodhicitta of the complete paramita of generosity that is like a treasure. So there's in the Uttara Tantra, there's a whole list of different synonyms for bodhicitta. And they are organized into this list of 22 different aspects of bodhicitta that map onto the 5 paths in this sort of miraculously weird way. And they're in the volume 2 of the Profound Treasury. Judy did this cool chart at the end of the 2nd volume that shows those 22 aspects and what they refer to. And so, presumably, the aspect of bodhicitta that is affiliated with the paramita of generosity is synonymized, is referred to as a synonym in terms as a treasure. Their going for refuge is obtained through the nature of phenomena, and they attain samadhis such as the illusion-like one and the one of heroic stride. So there's zillions of samadhis mentioned in the Mahayana Sutras. But there's 4 that come up repeatedly, and I think famously in maybe the Samadhi Raja Sutra. But there's like this list of 4 samadhis that are like sort of the ones that you see referred to all a number of times. And he lists the first 2. The illusion-like samadhi and the samadhi of the hero's stride, which is such an odd phrase of like walking through space. Here, heroes being great bodhisattvas, they stroll through the center of space, right? And then there's the 3rd one, I think, is the lion's gaze or something about a lion. I can't remember the 4th one. Anyway, calm, abiding spirit inside have become a unity, and they attain inexhaustible total recall. Sort of like the movie. These and other things are discussed in all sutras in infinite specifications. So there's this text by Mipam that we've gone through a couple of times called The Sword of Wisdom. Text on valid cognition, and it has a sort of ground path and fruition quality to it. And the fruition is these 8 treasures of a bodhisattva, or a learned one, or accomplished one, that lists these 8 qualities that appear as you achieve a certain very high level of the path, one of which is total recall. Explanation of the path of familiarization, which is the 4th path. By virtue of the training and familiarization on the 6 impure bhumis and the 3 pure bhumis, this is the phase of recollection. So recollection is the term that Maitreya uses in this text, Dharmadharmatavabhanga, to refer to the 4th path. The 6 bhumis, that consist of the second one and the following, which is a clunky way of saying bhumis 2 through 7, entail conceptual characteristics, and thus their conduct is slightly impure, right? So we have impure bhumis and pure bhumis, which refers to the equipoise, or the subsequent, or the post-meditation experience of a noble one who has already experienced the path of seeing in equipoise, but when they leave their meditative equipoise, they once again experience a subtle conceptual version of the world due to the immense conditioning of habit patterns of viewing things dualistically. The 3 that consist of the 8th one, meaning the bhumis 8, 9, and 10 and the following, operate naturally of their own accord without characteristics and without effort. Therefore, they are pure. The Mahayana Samgraha by Sangha says the following in its section that teaches relinquishment. The change through realization is the one of bodhisattvas having entered the bhumis. For up through the 6th bhumi, both the appearances of true reality during meditative equipoise and what is not true reality during subsequent attainment are present. So you have this dualistic experience, different between in meditation and post. The change through familiarization is the one of those bodhisattvas who still possess some cognitive obscurations, for from the 7th up through the 10th bhumi, all characteristics disappear, while true reality appears. The change in terms of the completely perfect fruition is the one of those who are without any obscurations, the Buddhas. For them, for them, all characteristics disappear. Utterly pure, true reality appears, and they have attained the mastery over all characteristics. As taught above in detail, all afflictive and cognitive obscurations are relinquished, the 2 obscurations. On the 6 impure bhumis of the path of familiarization, bodhisattvas attain the ultimate generation of bodhicitta as the aspects of ethics being like a jewel mine. So here we have the analogies or synonyms or metaphors, I guess, for the other paramitas after treasure. Jewel mine, patience being like an unruffled ocean, vigor being like a vajra that crushes the obscurations, the mountain of dhyana, like that is not moved by distractions, the medicine of prajna that pacifies the disease of the latencies, and being like a friend who holds one through skill and means. The medicine of prajna that both purifies the disease of the latencies, the latent tendencies, and being like a friend. That part of the sentence is a little odd. Then the generations of ultimate bodhicitta on the 3 pure bhumis are the wish-fulfilling jewel of aspiration prayers, the 8th paramita, that are fulfilled as aspired, which is that the Buddhas come and they predict your Buddhahood. The son of the power to dispel the darkness of the minds of sentient beings and mature the qualities of a Buddha is the ninth. Power, the paramita of power. And tenth, the wisdom that is the beautiful song of the Dharma. That's the name of the tenth paramita, I guess. It's a Dharma cloud normally, right? That's the types of bodhicitta that arise on these three bhumis. As the types of bodhicitta that arise on these three bhumis in common, bodhisattvas also manifest the ones that are like the king of unimpeded strength, the treasure vault of the maturation of the two accumulations, the highway of enlightenment, the vehicle of progressing to compassion and emptiness being of equal taste, and the fountain of the inexhaustible ocean of dharanis and self-confidence. What is that? That's like an alternative list of the types of bodhicitta, I guess. At the end of the continuum of the 10th bhumi, the bhumi of receiving empowerment arises, on which there occur the generations of bodhicitta that resemble the pleasant melody of the speech that is equal to all sounds, the river of the wisdom mind that endlessly flows in samsara, and the cloud that spreads its physical emanations within an ocean of realms. These last three constitute the completion of uncontaminated karma. Amazing imagery, poetic imagery. I really get carried. I really get worked up on this stuff. The bhumi of receiving empowerment arises, right? So the 10th bhumi, at the end of the 10th bhumi, the Vajra-like samadhi happens, and then all the Buddhas of the 10 directions 3 times come and give that bodhisattva empowerment to make that bodhisattva Buddha. So that will happen to Maitreya theoretically at some point. What time is it now? Not anytime soon. As for these 10 bhumis, as explained before, after the nature of phenomena has been realized on the first one, on the second one, bodhisattvas engage in the training in superior ethics. On the third, fourth, and fifth, they complete the training in superior mind, consisting of patience, exertion, and meditation. On the sixth one, they finish the training in prajna. Through this, on the 4 bhumis that consist of the 7th one and the following, they attain the fourfold accomplishment of the results of these trainings. The fourfold accomplishment. So there's the training in ethics, the training in superior mind, the training in prajna. I guess the first one was the training in something, but those are the 4 trainings, I imagine. As for the hermeneutical etymologies of these bhumis, do you think Rangjung Dorje actually said hermeneutical etymologies? Obviously, he didn't use English, but the name of the first bhumi is Supreme Joy because the bodhisattvas on it are endowed with special supreme joy. He must have said something like, as for the meanings of the words or names of these bhumis, right? The second bhumi is the stainless realm, because ethics is without any stains of being corrupted. The third bhumi is the illuminated one because it produces the great radiance of samadhi. The fourth bhumi is the radiating one because it burns the remainders of the 2 obscurations through the dharmas that are concordant with enlightenment, which was exertion. The fifth bhumi, meditation, is difficult, or dhyana, is difficult to master because it equally masters samsaric existence and peace, which are difficult to master. The sixth bhumi is the facing one because prajna trains in both samsara and nirvana. The 7th bhumi is gone afar because it is joined with the path of the single progress of all Buddhas that is without characteristics. The 8th bhumi is the immovable one because it is not moved by either characteristics or effort. The 9th bhumi is the excellent one because the 4 discriminating awarenesses are completed. What are the 4 discriminating awarenesses? The 10th bhumi is the Dharma cloud, because samadhis and dharanis pervade all of space. At the end of this bhumi, one has power over the complete enlightened activity of the three kayas. Therefore, it is the bhumi of receiving empowerment. Once these 12 bhumis, including the bhumi of engagement through aspiration, have been completed, this is final Buddhahood, which is the level of the arrival at the nature of phenomena. The nature of the nature. Did I read that right? It's the level of the arrival at the nature of phenomena. Okay. The scriptural passages about the etymology of these bhumis are stated in the Mahayana Sujalamkara and the Bodhisattva Bhumi. They follow some summarizing verses rather. Non-conceptual wisdom by its nature is meditative equipoise, and subsequent attainment is its function, just like a fire, and it's consuming a thicket. Aspiring for the Dharma and superior intention represent prajna. Dhyana and compassion are the means. Through means and prajna being inseparable, all characteristics placed before one are dispelled. Thus the 10 obscurations are eliminated. The 10 obscurations, wow. One for each bhumi. The 10 bhumis are completed. The 10 paramitas become pure, and the qualities of entering the ocean of dharanis, samadhis, aspiration prayers, wisdoms, and powers are completed. This term dharanis is like a very flexible one. It has like a lot of different meanings. It's like a text. It's like a mantra. It's like an aspect of dharma, or like a statement of dharma or something. Through this, the basic element of the Buddha heart is attained, perfect Buddhahood without bondage and liberation, which is called omniscience, beyond samsara nirvana. Explanation of the path of completion, the fourth part of the second part of the eighth part of the third part of the seventh. And by virtue of the training and completion on the Buddha Bhumi, because the deeds of a Buddha are effortless and uninterrupted, this is the phase of the arrival at the nature of phenomena, that immediately upon which the uninterrupted deeds of a Buddha are attained is called the training and completion. Through it, the basic element of a Buddha is attained immediately upon bodhisattvas on the 10th bhumi, having definitely obtained the empowerment by all Buddhas. Thus, the mind stream of bodhisattvas becomes of the nature of the basic element, because the wisdom of the effortless three kayas, together with their enlightened deeds, arises. This is taught in detail through the chapter on enlightenment in the Uttara Tantra. Through nature, cause, fruition, function, endowment, manifestation, and its permanence and inconceivability, the Buddha Bhumi is determined. The nature is the purity of the basic element. The nature. Okay, so the chapter on enlightenment in the Uttara Tantra. Nature, cause, fruition. How many? 3, 6, 8? Something like that. The nature is the purity of the basic element. The cause of that purity becoming manifest is what is taught through the terms that are studied, the pure dharmas that are a natural outflow of this basic element. What is he talking about? These dharmas are what free from the two obscurations. You know that the fruition is twofold, dharmakaya and rupakayas. The function is the unimpeded function of the wisdom that overcomes the obscurations in a non-conceptual manner and is uncontaminated by them, which seems to be the definition of overcoming. The endowment is to be endowed with the enlightened activity for the marvelous welfare of oneself and others. The manifestation is the threefold permanence of the three kayas engaging in samsara for as long as it lasts. The threefold permanence, what would that be? Body, speech, mind? I don't know. This permanence is explained as being threefold in terms of being so by nature. There it is. Continuity and in terms of an uninterrupted series, respectively, is the threefold permanence
I think the
continuity.
threefold is simply that there's a permanence associated with each kaya.
The permanence is explained as being threefold, the threefold permanence of the three kayas, as nature, continuity. You don't think all three apply to each of the three kayas?
No, because I think I read the footnote and it says Dharmakaya is permanent by nature because it is without any change. The
That makes sense.
Sambhogakaya is permanent in terms of continuity because it is endowed with the five certainties. And the Nirmanakaya is permanent in the sense of an uninterrupted series because the enlightened activity of all the different forms of Nirmanakayas is uninterrupted until samsara is empty. Is that the quality of unimpededness, basically?
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but more spoken of like in terms of an HBO series or something, right? What was that? As for the reasons for that, the Uttara Tantra says, by virtue of the causes being infinite, by virtue of the realms of sentient beings being inexhaustible, by virtue of being endowed with compassion, miraculous powers, wisdom, and fulfillment, and by virtue of mastering all dharmas, by virtue of having vanquished the Mara of death, and by virtue of lacking any nature, the protector of the world is permanent. These reasons are explained in detail in the following verses in the Uttara Tantra, which is a confusing statement because then the text says the Mahayana Samgraha says, so presumably the Mahayana Samgraha is quoting the Uttara Tantra. Does the footnote yield any? You're muted in case you're trying to tell me something.
Sorry about that. It is a big paragraph, or not huge, but medium size. It's talking about the 7 reasons for the Rupakayas being permanent, and it lists them all out. And the
These
reasons for the
reasons
Dharmakaya being permanent. So I think it's just kind of reiterating what you just read in some way.
Okay. So, Asanga's Mahayana Samgraha says, how should one regard the distinctive features of wisdom? They consist of the 3 kayas, the Swabhavika kaya, Sambhoga kaya, and the Naraminika kaya. Here the Swabhavika kaya is the Dharma kaya of the Tathagatas because it is the foundation of mastery over all dharmas. The Sambhogika kaya is characterized by various mandalas, the retinues of the Buddhas, and is based on the Dharmakaya because it makes one experience the enjoyments of the pure Buddha realms in the Mahayana Dharma. The Nirmanakaya is also based on the Dharmakaya because it displays the deeds, starting with dwelling in the abode of Tushita up through displaying nirvana. Tushita is the realm of the 10th stage bodhisattva before they take birth as a Buddha. Here is a summarizing verse on the divisions of this characteristics: attainment, mastery, foundation, constitution, difference, qualities, profundity, recollection, and enlightened activity is 10. The characteristics, the first of those 10 is 5. Phew. The Dharmakaya is the characteristic of the fundamental change because when the aspect of the dependent nature from among the 3 natures that belongs to what is afflicted, i.e. all obscurations, has come to an end, it is changed into the aspect of the dependent nature that belongs to what is purified, is liberated from all obscurations, and abides as the mastery of all overall dharmas. So that's the transformed version of the dependent nature. As for its characteristics, having the nature of pure dharmas, through having perfected all pure dharmas, the 10 masteries are attained by virtue of the 6 paramitas. C. As for the characteristic of non-duality, all phenomena are non-dual in the sense of having the nature of non-entities and being empty, since both conditioned and conditioned phenomena do not exist. Mastery over both is attained. Also, Buddhas do not exist as being one or different. Characteristic of permanence is threefold, as we saw earlier. Characteristic of inconceivability is that the fundamental change is beyond dialectics. As for attainment, the second of these 10, since the two obscurations are destroyed by the wisdoms of meditative equipoise and subsequent attainment, this is attainment. Third, the masteries are 5 because of the following. Through the fundamental change of the skandha form, the mastery over pure Buddha realms, kayas, the excellent major and minor marks, infinite voices, and the invisible mark on the crown of the head, which is the Ushnisha, is attained. Through the fundamental change of the skandha feeling, the mastery over infinite and vast blissful states without wrongdoing is attained. Because of the fundamental change of the skandha of discrimination, the mastery over teaching to words, phrases, and letters is attained. Because of the fundamental change of the skandha formation, the mastery over creation, transformation, gathering retinues, and gathering pure dharmas is attained. Through the fundamental change of the skandha of consciousness, the alaya changes into mirror-like wisdom. So the wisdoms of the Buddhas. Mentation, which is presumably the seventh consciousness, into the wisdom of equality. So the sixth consciousness into discriminating wisdom, and the 5 sense consciousnesses into all accomplishing wisdom, which covers 4 of the 5 wisdoms, leaving 1 wisdom missing, right? Vajra-like wisdom, Vajra family. Equality is Ratna.
No, it's the Buddha one that's not.
Isn't Buddha mirror-like?
No, that's Vajra.
Mirror-like wisdom. Okay, well that makes more sense. Good. The Dharmakayas, being a foundation, is threefold. It's the 4th topic of foundation. It is the foundation of great bliss because of power, all accomplishment, taste of Dharma, boundless and eternally inexhaustible consummations of its meanings and qualities, and the scene of that are attained. B, it is the foundation of Sambhogakaya because the latter matures, Bodhisattvas. It is the foundation of various Nirmanikakayas because the latter mainly matures, Shravakas. 5, what constitutes the Dharmakaya is 6-fold. The Dharmakaya is constituted by 1. The pure Buddha Dharmas having become pure by virtue of the fundamental change of the alaya consciousness. So the translator here adds consciousness, whereas earlier it just said alaya changes into mirror-like wisdom. But he didn't add consciousness there. The Dharmakaya is further constituted by...
He did, the word consciousness was in the statement before.
The statement of skandha of consciousness.
Yeah, so you presume that all of the things that are referred to coming after that are the consciousnesses, I presume.
Presumably, yeah. And he adds it after the 6th consciousness and the 5, but he doesn't add it after the others. Anyway, the Dharmakaya is further constituted by the wisdom of maturation by virtue of the fundamental change of the physical sense faculties. Thirdly, boundless wisdom by virtue of the fundamental change of sense pleasures. Fourthly, the wisdom that is unimpeded with regard to everything by virtue of the fundamental change of various purposeful activities. And 5, satisfaction of all sentient beings through all teachings by way of conventions. And 6th and last, the removal of all flaws of sentient beings through the removal of all misfortunes and flaws. The removal of all flaws of sentient beings through the removal of all misfortunes and flaws. Okay. 6, the difference in terms of foundation, intention, and enlightened activity. The Dharmakayas of all Buddhas are equal. However, since numberless sentient beings become enlightened. As such dharmakayas, they are different. So that's a fascinating statement, right? The dharmakayas are different. Since numberless sentient beings become enlightened, as such dharmakayas, they are different. Did I read that right?
Well, isn't he
The
saying that
dharmakayas of all Buddhas are equal. They're equal
is
but
it
different.
could this be related to this the often asked question of that different Buddhas manifest differently? So the fundamentals of foundation, intention, and engagement in enlightenment activity, I guess they're all equal, but they each have their different flavor because they all came from different beings. Different.
Yeah, they don't really say that, but that is the possibility. Similarly, the Sambhogakayas are not different in terms of intention and enlightened activity, but are different in terms of supports. And the same goes for the Nirmanakayas, presumably meaning it has not different in a different aspect. Qualities, seventh, are summarized as 64. In case you like lists, the 32 of the Dharmakaya, 32 of the Rupakayas, in more detail they consist of. So who's going to keep track? 4 purities in all respects, 4 measurables, that's 8, 8 liberations is 16, 8 kinds of overpowering, that's 24, 10 totalities is 34, dispassion is 35, knowledge through aspiration 36, the 4 discriminating awareness is 40, the 6 supernatural knowledges is 46. The 32 major marks is 78. The 80 minor marks, wait a second. The 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, 3 ways of nothing to hide. 3 ways of nothing to hide. That's a good one. The 3 ways of nothing to hide. The threefold foundation of mindfulness, the latent tendencies being overcome, the true nature being without forgetfulness, great compassion, the 18 unique qualities of Buddha, knowledge of all aspects, and being endowed with the perfection of the 6 paramitas. And even more detail, they're also said to be 640 million.
Just a really basic question: is the threefold foundation of mindfulness the like Trengpa, Shishin, and what Pakyu or whatever the third one is? Because it's not the 4 foundations of mindfulness, obviously, because it's only 3. So is it more just those 3 qualities, do you think?
That would sound great, but who knows?
Okay.
The 32 of the Dharmakaya, 32 of the Rupakas, and then they list over 100.
I
Eight.
came up with 61, and someone said, "Oh, we need 3 more. How about 3 ways of nothing to hide?" That makes 64.
We'll set up a spreadsheet for you, Derek, to try to count them all up.
Please do. I guess the 32 major and 80 minor are like counted as one each.
Something like that, yeah, for sure.
And then it makes sense because he got 18 later. Okay. 8. If the inconceivable profound nature of the Dharmakaya of a Buddha summarized, it is 12-fold. First, the profundity in terms of nirvana, enlightened activity, and abiding, so 3 qualities. Non-arising is the arising of Buddhas. They abide in non-abiding. They do everything effortlessly. They partake of the 4 foods. The 4 foods are like samadhi and ethical conduct or something like that. Second, the profundity in terms of the way of being, number, and enlightened activity. They are not different and yet immeasurable. Their enlightened activity is immeasurable and yet single. They are endowed with unfixed enlightened activity. The Buddhas possess the 3 kayas. Third, the profundity in terms of fully perfect enlightenment. There is no fully perfect enlightenment whatsoever, but it is not that all Buddhas are not Buddhas. In each instant they are immeasurable, consisting of entities and non-entities. Okay, fourth, the profundity in terms of being free from attachment. There are desires, there are non-desires to desire. They were delivered knowing desire, non-desire. They entered the true nature of desire. Fifth, the profundity in terms of having relinquished the skandhas. The Buddhas are beyond the skandhas, but they dwell in the skandhas. They are neither other than them, nor not other. Through not relinquishing them, they pass well beyond. Sixth, the profundity in terms of maturing and sentient beings. They are endowed with the enlightened activity in which all their activities merge. The victors thus resemble the waters in the ocean. They do not ponder about the welfare of others, thinking, I did that, I'm doing this, I will do that. Seventh, the profundity in terms of seeing the Buddhas. It is because of the flaws of sentient beings. If Buddhas do not appear, it is because of the flaws of sentient beings that Buddhas do not appear. It's our fault that there's no Buddha right now.
What is the? Oh, what about? Was it? Actually, wasn't it a sangha who was on retreat for the 12 years and couldn't see Maitreya, and it was all his own fault too, right?
That's right. Just as the moon does not reflect in a broken container, ouch. Just like the sun, they pervade the entire world with light of Dharma. Eighth, the profundity in terms of display nirvana. To some they display perfect enlightenment, and to some nirvana. Just as the fire illuminates and is extinguished respectively. They are never non-existent. The kayas of the Tathagatas are permanent. Ninth, the profundity in terms of abiding with regard to the dharmas that are not noble, the human and lower realms, and the dharmas that are not pure conic. The Buddhas are of superior nature and abode. 10th, the profundity in terms of displaying their true nature. They move about anywhere, everywhere, but they do not move about anywhere. Tricky, huh? They are seen in all places, but they are not the sphere of the six sense faculties. 11th, the profundity in terms of having relinquished the afflictions. They tamed the afflictions, but did not relinquish them. Just like a poison rendered impotent by a mantra, it is by virtue of the afflictions that the Buddhas terminated the afflictions and attained omniscience because of the afflictions. 12th, the profundity in terms of inconceivability. For those who are endowed with great means, the afflictions become branches of enlightenment, and samsara has the nature of nirvana. Therefore, the Tathagatas are inconceivable. One should understand that these 12 teach the inconceivable profundity of the Buddhas. Ninth, the Bodhisattvas should cultivate the following 7 recollections of the Buddhas. They should recollect, since the Buddhas have attained the supernatural knowledges, they are unimpeded in all worldly realms. They are endowed with the principle of mastery over all phenomena. Since they are liberated from all stains, their kayas are permanent at all times. They should meditate as follows. They are without any evil, without effort, endowed with measurable enjoyments, and by virtue of taintless enlightenment, mature those who are not matured, and liberate those who are matured. According to what it is said in the ocean of the samadhi of recollecting the Buddha, which is the sutra, beginners adopt a cross-legged position, immerse themselves in mindfulness, place a statue in front of them, and while meditating on it in a one-pointed manner, contemplate the inconceivable qualities of the Buddha. Having manifested such calm abiding and superior insight, they will swiftly experience all the Buddha dharmas. As for the qualities of this meditation, it is said that if one cultivates this samadhi, the present Buddha actually dwelling in front of oneself without interruption by anything else for 7 days, one will definitely go to Sukhavati and attain the path of seeing. What do you say? Should we do that? Should we have a retreat and focus on this one practice? There's a sutra that's available in English of the samadhi of all the Buddhas appearing in front of oneself. We could recite that sutra and meditate on that, visualize the present Buddha actually dwelling in front of oneself. The catch is that there is no present Buddha, right? There's got to be a catch. 9, knowing the shortcomings. If there were no fundamental change, life would be a bummer. Brief introduction. As for comprehending the shortcomings, these are the 4 shortcomings. If there be no fundamental change, there must be the fundamental change that results from support, and what is supported being different as discussed above. Therefore, this has 4 parts. First, the flaw of there being no support for the afflictions not operating. If there were not the nature of the fundamental change, the permanent dharmakaya afflictions could not but operate again in their support, that is the alaya consciousness, because it is the result of having accumulated the entirety of false imagination, and the other consciousnesses are produced by it. That's an interesting sentence on its own in the description of the alaya. It's the result of having accumulated the entirety of false elimination, and the other consciousness are produced by it. However, if there is the arising of the uncontaminated wisdom that is supported by the support which is the dharmakaya, the afflictions do not operate because their remedy is blazing. That's a reference to the blaze, right? That program in the desert, the blaze. What is it? No, that's Burning Man. The blaze is the pumpkins, right? All the pumpkins. However, if there is the arising of contentment wisdom that is supported, did I skip? Where the hell am I?
You read that one because you got down to blazing, just as, for example, the darkness.
Does not occur in the sun. Thank you. Second, the flaw of there being no support for engaging in the path. If there were no fundamental change, there would be no support for the afflictions not operating. There would be no support for engaging in the path. If on 293, if one needs to definitely generate the 5 uncontaminated paths in due order, one relies on the support that is non-conceptual wisdom, the unchanging perfect nature, in order to manifest attainment through relying on ultimate practice. Ultimate practice. The natural outflow of this wisdom, unmistaken study, reflection, and meditation produces fruitions that are increasingly pure. However, it is not feasible for purity to arise from an impure support, because it is not tenable for something uncontaminated to arise from something contaminated. These two are mutually exclusive, just like light and darkness. Does that mean that we have this original state of purity and then contaminations? So where did the contaminations come from?
I'm just curious because they always use that metaphor of the lotus that grows from the mud.
I haven't seen that at all in this text.
Well, not here, but I mean, in general, it is a common metaphor, and yet this sort of seems to be kind of not agreeing with that.
Yeah, that's right. Is your cat striped all the way down or just the tail? Oh, shows the tail.
Whoops.
It was one of his tail.
There you go.
The tail is nicely striped.
The tail is very stripy, yes. But he's pretty much tabby all on the back, and then on the front he's white. Stomach.
Let's see. However, is not feasible for purity to arise from an impure support, because it is not tenable for something uncontaminated to arise from something contaminated. These two are mutually exclusive, like light and darkness. Third, there's the flaw of there being no basis for designating the persons who have passed into nirvana. If there's no fundamental change. As for samsara with its three contaminated realms, it is through the causal karmas that are produced by ignorance and formations, the first two nidanas, that the 3 realms of samsaric existence, which are based on craving and grasping, 7 and 8, are established. Likewise, it is based on the uncontaminated pure karmas of nirvana, that the vimukti kaya, that's such a cool term, the liberation body, vimukti, is liberation. It is based on the uncontaminated pure karmas of nirvana that the vimukti kaya, liberation body, exists as being designated as arhats, particular Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and also the final great perfect enlightenment must exist. If both samsara and nirvana had the same support, there would be great flaws. It is contradictory for antagonistic factors to be relinquished and their remedies to have the same support. Also, when the mind ceases, mistakenness ceases, and therefore the perfect nature that is wisdom would cease too. If the perfect nature were to cease too in this manner, it would be conditioned. Consequently, the nature of phenomena, the Dharmakaya, which are unconditioned, would absolutely not exist either, and if such is accepted, it would represent the view of Kanada. Who is Kanada? What does the note say?
Husk Eater. He was the founder of the Vaisesikas.
Vaisheshikas. Okay.
And he received his name because he was able to meditate for a long time while sustaining himself by eating only grain husks. And there's more, but I won't read it all.
So he lived on cereal.
Well, I mean, Milarepa lived on nettles. He lived on grain husks.
Probably Cheerios.
He was also called an owl because on his accomplishment, never mind, that's too much. Too much detail.
Since the pure dharmas would be meaningless, it is not in order to regard the Four Noble Ones as being non-existent. The Four Noble Ones generally refers to those on the four levels of accomplishment in the early tradition of stream enter, once returner, non-returner, and arhat, I think. Therefore, with fundamental change existing, it is tenable to designate the persons who have passed into nirvana. Fourth, and the flaw, there being no basis for designating differences between the three types of enlightenment, if there was no transformation. As for the three types of enlightenment, the difference in terms of liberation based on the support, that is the Dharmadhatu, are as follows. Shravakas are liberated through relinquishing the afflictive obscurations, including their support. So the afflictive obscurations, including their support of clinging to a personal self. And so the translator is glossing this as meaning that the support of the afflictive obscurations is clinging to a personal self, implying that they relinquish the clinging to a self. In addition to that, Pratyeka Buddhas are only endowed with liberation, having relinquished the conceptions about the apprehended, the object, with regard to phenomena, because they gain slight mastery over samadhis, such as the sky treasure, another samadhi, which are based on unconditioned, uncontaminated phenomena. Sky treasure might be the fourth of those. Anyway, so they relinquish, they sort of overcome the self, clinging to a self of phenomena to some extent, slight mastery. As for bodhisattvas from the path of seeing onward, they realize that any identities of both persons and phenomena do not exist. Thus, through relying on the familiarization with this twofold identity list in order to eradicate the stains of these identities, they are liberated from the ground of the latent tendencies of ignorance and thereby become Buddhas. Therefore, based on the support that is the Dharmakaya, it is feasible to designate these three differences in terms of liberation. It's interesting to take the Dharmakaya as a support. Thus, it is feasible to designate the three types of enlightenment: the enlightenment having relinquished the afflictions, the enlightenment having relinquished the apprehended, and complete enlightenment. However, if there were no such fundamental changes, since there would also be no differences with regard to the sheer alaya consciousnesses that are not in common, coming to an end. So if you remember there's the alaya that's in common and the alaya that's not in common. The alaya that's in common is the environment, and the alaya that's not in common is the stream of karmic traces of individuals. Those three types of enlightenment would not be feasible if the very alaya consciousness were the support of enlightenment. The fundamental change of what is supported would not be tenable in any respect, because causes and results, as well as factors to be relinquished and remedies, would be mistaken. So, in the Lanka Avatara Sutra, it implies that the Alaya Vijnana transforms into Buddhahood. And so Rangjung Dorje is clarifying that that's not possible. The Alaya Vijnana is a defiled consciousness, so it cannot be the support of enlightenment.
But could it be that when they're in the other view of that it's transformed by virtue of being emptied of the defilements?
It does say that it's transformed, as are all the other consciousnesses are transformed.
Because that's one way that, they talk about sort of emptying out all the seeds and defilements, and then from that point of view, when that emptying is done, what's left is perhaps could be viewed as pure and
That's interesting. Yeah, they do say that the consciousnesses change into wisdoms.
I think that's what I've heard in some contexts before.
Yeah. If the very Alaya consciousness were the support of enlightenment, the fundamental change would have supported would not be tenable in any respect, because causes and results. Causes would include the foundation consciousness, and results as well as factors to be relinquished, and remedies would be mistaken. These differences between the fundamental changes in the Hinayana and the Mahayana are also found in the Mahayana Samgraha. But that's an interesting issue that you bring up there seems to be a contradiction, because at times they say that the Alaya Vijnana cannot be the locus, so to speak, for the transformation into enlightenment, but that at the same time it becomes changed into one of the wisdoms. We'll have to consult Dr. Brunholzl. The inferior fundamental change is the one of the Shravakas, because they totally abandon samsara through realizing personal identity-ness and completely turn their back on samsara. The vast fundamental change is the one of bodhisattvas, because they realize phenomenal identitylessness and see this very samsara as peace, thus relinquishing the afflictions while not abandoning samsara. That's cool. They see samsara as nirvana. They relinquish the afflictions while not abandoning this place. This completes the instruction on the flaws of there being no fundamental change. Explanation of comprehending the benefits. The 10th of the 10 topics of the 7th section of the section on transformation. Explanation of comprehending the benefits. As for comprehending the benefits, one should know that when there is the fundamental change, the opposites of those are the 4 kinds of benefits. The opposites of those.
Opposites of the flaws?
Of the flaws, exactly. As for the 4 benefits, when the pure dharmas that are supported by the support, which is the Dharmakaya, increase and unfold. The first one is the benefit of the afflictive obscurations not arising at all. The second one is the benefit of the uncontaminated phenomena that are the reality of the path being tenable as the causes of accomplishing the Dharmakaya. The third one is the benefit of liberations of the 3 kinds of persons being tenable temporarily, though the final nirvana is one. For through seeing that the obscurations, false imagination are adventitious, and thus relinquishing their respective amounts, there exist the accomplishments and the respective fruitions of such relinquishments are adventitious, and thus relinquishing their respective amounts. That's a little odd. The fourth one is the benefit that consequently the 3 types of alignment are also tenable, due to which the 3 yanas are not contradictory either. These 4 kinds of benefits should be known to be the benefits of their being the fundamental change. One should understand that these are the 10 points of comprehending the fundamental change. If one summarizes the meaning of all these aspects of the fundamental change that are explained through the 10 points discussed in these ways, everything that the Mahayana Sutra Alamkara, the Uttara Tantra, and the Mahayana Samgraha say is included in just these following verses. Oh, cool. For childish beings with true reality being obscured, what is not true reality appears everywhere. Having eliminated, for bodhisattvas, true reality appears everywhere. It should be understood that what does not appear and what does appear are what is unreal and what is real, respectively. This fundamental change is liberation because they then can act as they wish. But they say, having eliminated from bodhisattvas, true reality appears everywhere. And then he says, what does not appear, what does appear, what is unreal, what does not appear, and what is real. What does not appear is unreal, and what does appear is real. True reality. Okay, good. This teaches the nature of the fundamental change. Boom. You may wonder what happens to having engaged in and having attained it. The Mahayana Samgraha continues once the understanding that samsara and nirvana are equal, arises in them. Consequently, samsara becomes nirvana. Therefore, samsara is neither abandoned nor not abandoned. Therefore, nirvana is neither attained nor not attained. In this way, all aspects of the fundamental change have been well, thoroughly explained. And that was where we had agreed to go through for this text, skipping the analogies or the examples at the end. Comments? This was a difficult course and a difficult text, indeed, wasn't it? And admittedly, somewhat of a boring text and course, although sort of subtly fascinating in a sort of incomprehensible way. Like a glimpse at how amazingly profound these texts are and their commentaries. And it's sort of like, for me, it was like, it helps, it sort of makes me think of these texts that we feel like are simpler and more understandable, are like deceivingly so, I think. Like the text by Nagarjuna and stuff that just seem very repetitive of there is no this and that. When you look at the commentaries, they unpack these things in great detail and complexity, as Rangjung Dorje has done for this. It's amazing that he can see all of that in here, and add all that commentary. It's quite remarkable. Any comments by you guys? So we gone through now this text by Maitreya. The royal we went through Abhisamaya Alamkara, Madhyanta Vibhaga. So we haven't gone through the Uttara Tantra and the Sutra Alamkara. But
We've never done the Uttara Tantra at all?
no, I think I pulled out snippets of it in some course on Buddha nature. I think we had a course on Buddha nature, and we did part of the chapter on Buddha nature from the Uttara Tantra, the famous section of
Metaphors and things.
Well, before the metaphors, the statement of it being stained, only stained by adventitious. The stains are adventitious. Mm-hmm. That whole statement, that whole thing, that Buddha nature is stained by adventitious stains that are not inherent to it, and that Buddha nature itself doesn't change. As it was before, so it is after. that famous phrase. And so we have a nice long break here for the remainder of this month. And then in early January, I hope you'll all continue going through the moonbeams of Mahamudra texts. We'll continue with that, the sections on sustaining meditation, which is, I think, the best part of the book, actually. And flaws and going strains, what are they called? Strains, flaws and strains. And some of you haven't been with us going through the Vipassana pointing out sections, but I would imagine that you would have read those on your own, at least skim through those. That's great. That's good. Those are chapters that one reads over and over again, basically, it seems to me. You can never read those chapters too many times, especially the Vipassana one. Comments, suggestions, thoughts, concerns? Cynthia?
Yeah. So
Oh, Chris.
when I reach the 10th boon, the Buddhas from the 10 directions will appear and give me Abhishekam. Are they going to give me a playing card, so I can prove that I reached it? I mean, how I don't. I'm worried about that.
Well, you can ask him at the time what proof you get. You can ask them that.
And then you can ask yourself what pocket you're going to put it in, of what pair of pants that you'll be wearing in the body that you won't have.
Which is sort of the answer, is like the card that you have is that your body transforms into the Trikaya. And it's pretty obvious that you have achieved Buddhahood and received that empowerment.
Not everyone will see. The question is really, those who can see that are the other Buddhas, so they know. And those who won't be able to see it, the card would only be beneficial for those who don't have that credential themselves yet. But that's the way it is.
Like a club, secret society type thing.
Yeah, it seems like a little like that.
Yeah, like the Buddha. He didn't have a card. And some people didn't recognize him. Some people didn't see his enlightened aspect and thought he was just an ordinary person.
But yet, interestingly, some like his, the story they tell of his very first teaching, those guys who were kind of like, oh, we're not going to listen to him and, just ignore him when he comes. And then he came and they definitely saw it.
Yeah. Well, the dust on their eyes, as the Buddha describes it, was very light. And so they were very close to enlightenment, and he just had to sort of blow on the dust and there you go.
Yeah, it's just I always thought that's such a lovely story, though, because even if the dust on their eyes was light, they did have that little grudge or something that they were carrying.
They did, yeah. What a
But
lush
just
she is.
completely dropped it, like, whoosh.
Yeah, they saw his radiance because they had that ability. But after that, the Buddha goes walking off into the woods, and I should find the story. He meets somebody and asks some direction to the town or something. I don't know. And this person just says, "Yeah, it's that way." It's sort of like, "What is your name?" Okay, nice to meet you. Bye. What terrible karma, right? To meet the Buddha right after enlightenment and not to say.
Well, there must be some story about that person eventually.
There always is, yeah.
Right? I mean, that encounter, in one sense, it's bad karma, but on the other hand, it's good karma. That wherever they were coming from, they did encounter the Buddha, just like the story of the, like Pema Tsal or whatever it is, the one, the mosquito on.
With the pigeons that overhear the monks chanting, and then are reborn as, I think, the sons of the woman. They become a Sangha and Vasubandhu.
Right, like that, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I had a question actually about a footnote,
Mm.
if I may. It's it was a footnote in a few pages back, and it was talking about it was in all that things about permanence, and it says non-conceptual wisdom or Buddhahood is permanent because it has the characteristic of being pure suchness. Okay. The second one is the one I was questioning about, is the result of previous boundless aspiration prayers. And then the third one is the activity never comes to a halt. So that's another one of those Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya sort of things, maybe. But the middle one, I was puzzling about that because it says,
What
if we leave
footnote
out
is
the
it, by
other
the
one.
way?
What's that?
What footnote?
760. So it's non-conceptual wisdom or Buddhahood is permanent because suchness, and then is the result of previous boundless aspiration prayers. So that one puzzled me because that makes it sound like it's a result of a cause.
Yeah, that is odd.
I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that. Because that seems like kind of contradictory to what they say.
The only thought that I have is that if you could read that sentence differently and say it's permanent because it's pure suchness, and then don't apply the permanence to the other two parts of the sentence.
But then it would say Buddhahood is the result of previous aspiration prayers, which I still think sounds questionable. But the only way I could
Buddhahood
look
is
at
the
it is,
result of the path, isn't it?
it's the result of what?
The path.
Well, I thought that, well, I guess the question is how we define what we mean by saying Buddhahood. I guess Buddha nature is already there, but Buddhahood is not already there. Okay, so I see it. Well, except that they're equating non-conceptual wisdom and Buddhahood, but yet non-conceptual wisdom, is that also synonymous with Buddha nature or not? Anyway, I'm assuming that what it really means is that the aspiration prayers are part of what clears away the obscurations, I presume, or something like that. Not that it changes the fundamental, what is supposed to already be there from the beginning, ground, right?
It's odd. I don't know. It's this is usually presented in a different way. That, like, why do Buddhas appear? Because they have a nature like the sky, or like Dharmadhatu, or like pure suchness, and they appear. It's like, in what manner do they appear? This is usually a list of how, in what way they appear. They appear as as their appearance is based on the aspiration prayers from the past.
So that has to do with that sort of their specific manifestation thing that we were
Yeah,
talking about before.
yeah.
That part I understand, but it's just weird that the using the term result just
Yeah.
triggered the is that
The result is an odd word to use here. Yeah.
okay? Well, but what you just said, it sounds like maybe it's kind of a translation imperfection. Maybe.
Yeah, it's an odd
Okay, well,
thing.
thanks for your.
What was the place in the text where it was?
Oh, let me see if I can find it. Hold on. It was up in that section on.
The permanence of the truth.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you back then, so I didn't bring it up then. But okay, it's around page 290 or 291. Hold on.
I think 288. No.
Wait. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, sorry, 762.
The bottom of 2787.
Yeah, that's probably it. Where did that thing go? There's 759. There it is. Okay, yeah, bottom of 287. The characteristic of permanence is threefold, and then that's where they go off to the footnote.
Interesting. Yeah, the wording is a little odd. I'll have to complain to Tempo Carl.
This is his, all of that is his, well, maybe he has a good explanation, of course.
He generally is using some source for his footnotes.
I have no doubt there's, good logic behind it. And as I say, I can conceive of ways in which it might make sense, but it just, wasn't entirely clear. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you all for persevering and continuing. And look forward to seeing you in other contexts, maybe this Sunday, some of you in person or online, for the practice session. And if not, have a wonderful holiday season and hope to see you in early next year. So let's conclude with our dedication. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara. May I free all beings by the confidence of the golden sun of the great east. May the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Yay! Thank you.